Here is another terrible thing that social services did right after I gave birth. As in the next day. I gave birth at 5:36 p.m. Visiting hours ended at 8 p.m. so everyone that had been there with me at the hospital had to leave then. Me and my daughter had to stay in hospital overnight because there were some complications during my labour. And I was happy to stay overnight. I felt that, yeah, that was necessary. So that night we were sleeping on a ward with 5 or 6 other people who had just given birth. And it was fine. The next day, my foster carer who was living with me visited me at the hospital, and so did my mum. The plan was, as far as I was aware, that my foster carer would be taking me back to the foster placement, because the plan was I was to stay in foster care until I was 18. So me going back into care, my baby was coming with me, but my baby was not technically in foster care, if that makes sense. Once I left care, she'd be coming with me in care, she's with me. A few people have asked why was I in care when I had a relationship with my mum. This was early days of us building on our relationship again, so it wouldn't have been appropriate for me to go and live with my mum at this point. The midwife came into the room at 2 p.m. This is the day after I'd given birth, 2 p.m. and asked me if I'm ready to go home, and I said yes. So my foster carer, we pack up all my bags, I put my baby in the car seat, when suddenly the midwife, who had left the room, comes running back in and says, "Oh no, you can't leave yet." And I was like, oh, okay, why? My first thought was my daughter had to have loads of tests because of my labour. So my first thought was, oh, maybe the test results are bad. But it wasn't that. It was social services. What had happened is my midwife felt that she had an obligation to tell my social worker that she was discharging me from the hospital. And the social worker had turned around and said, no, don't discharge her until I see her. And I thought, no, that can't be right. So I called my social worker straight away and she reiterated that, yes, she had said that. I didn't understand. I would understand if me and my child were going to live independently or to a new foster carer, but we were going back to where I had lived for 7 months. Social services had met my foster carer multiple times over the 7-month period that I lived there. And the plan always was that me and my baby would go back to live with this foster carer until I turned 18, and then me and my baby would go and live independently. No social worker had ever told me that I would need to be signed out of hospital by social services. So I said to my social worker, well, we're ready to go. My baby's in the car seat. Can you come down and just let me leave? Social worker said, oh no, I'm busy today, sorry. Busy today. So I was like, well, I'm not gonna stay in hospital another night, so I'm just gonna go. I'm just gonna get Sandra, my foster carer, to take us home. I'd given birth without pain relief. I was still in agony. I just wanted to be at home. I just wanted my bed. I just wanted to be around my own toiletries. I wanted to go home. The social worker said, if you leave before I see you, I'll get the midwives to call the police. If this ever happened to me now, I would just leave. Because really, I don't think the police would have done anything. If I'd actually left, the police probably wouldn't have done anything. But I was a scared 17-year-old. So I just accepted that. Bless the midwives. They felt so sorry for me. They gave me my own private room. The night before, I'd shared the room with all the other women who had just given birth. They actually gave me my own private room, which was really nice of them, but it didn't really help. I wanted to go home. The next day at 9 a.m, I ring my social worker straight away. She doesn't answer the phone. I ring her over and over and over and over again. Long story short, because I don't want to get angry while I relay this story, but pretty much the same thing happened. Social worker couldn't see me, so I stayed in hospital again because I was scared. Here's the thing as well I should have mentioned sooner. The social services office was 15 minutes away from the hospital. And when I say that, I mean a 15-minute walk. 5-minute drive. My foster carer kept saying, look, I will just take you home. I don't care. I will take you home. She wanted me at home too. But I really thought social services were going to ring the police. And the thing is, social services weren't involved in my child's life because they thought I was a bad mum. I'd only been a mum for like 36 hours. The foster carer was like, no, I'll take you home. Let's go. I'm scared. No, they're going to ring the police. I don't want to get in trouble. They're going to mark me down as being a bad mum. They're going to try and find an excuse to take my daughter. I know how this all works. So I stayed in hospital another night. I've now stayed in hospital 3 days. It's only in hindsight that I've realised how that really, really messed me up. I look back and I don't know how me and my daughter managed to bond in that time. That was the most stressful couple of days of my life. Anyway, the next day, I ring the social worker. She doesn't answer her phone. So I leave her a voicemail and I say, we're leaving the hospital. If you want to call the police, call the police. I don't care anymore. I'd had enough. Listen. Me and Sandra lived in Thornton Heath. That's where home was. That's where we were going back to. The hospital was about 40 minute drive away from Thornton Heath because I didn't want to give birth at Croydon Hospital, previously known as Mayday, aka Mayday. I didn't want to give birth in the Croydon Hospital. Imagine me and Sandra get back to the foster placement, with my baby. Social worker's waiting there. So the social worker who kept saying that she didn't have time to make it 5 minutes up the road to the hospital made it to Thornton Heath. And all she said was, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I am now I'm home." She peered at my daughter in the car seat still, said she was cute, and then went on about her way. This whole I had to be signed out of hospital thing, I didn't have to sign anything. I felt like this was just a massive power trip. And I swear to God, I've got it in my notes. Like every story time I tell, every story I tell, I make sure I talk about things that are in my foster care files so that no one can ever say I'm not telling the truth. I will always have evidence to back up what I'm saying. But I can't get my head around that to this day. I stayed in hospital for 3 nights because they just wanted to look at my daughter, call her cute, and what else? What else did they do? And I know not all social workers are bad. I feel bad telling these stories because I don't want people to think all social workers are like that. But some of them, I'll never get over that.